Okay, morning everybody. This is supposed to be 10:30. It's 11. Yesterday we had a Fabrengen as a conjunction with our porch minyan, which has now become a street minyan. And at the Fabrengen we were talking about the idea of people who worked with the Rebbe. And one of the ideas that somebody brought up is that when the Rebbe asked why something wasn't done, he didn't want an excuse. The point of asking that question was, don't give me excuses. The point of asking the question was either, if you did it, let me know, or in the future, you get a job, you got to do it, got to get done. So, no excuses, okay? No excuses. We learned Rebbe's Kapital. And I have told you many times that this is both a labor and a love, or a love and a labor. And we're holding Ois Mem. Is Mem. That means Pesukim Tzadik Zayin until Kuf Dalet. So first of all, there's a shtickle chiddush here, because we're doing now Yom Chavov, the 26th day of the month, Tilim, rather than the 25th. In other words, Kufites is divided into two shurim, of Chitas, of Tilim, but it's not divided evenly. 12 oisias are in Chav Hey, and 10 oisias are in Chavov. Now, for those who are familiar with Hasidus, you know the difference between the number 25 and the number 26. And you also know the difference between the number 12 and the number 10. The number 25 means koi, approximate, not exact, which is a lower level. As the Gemara says, Kol HaNeviim is nabim b'koi. That's considered a lower level. And Moshe Rabbeinu, Noisevel of Moshe Rabbeinu, is Zeh HaDovim, is nabim b'zeh. The number Chavav is Hashem's name, 26. And we always associate the number 26 with Zeh. In other words, Hashem's name is explicit and direct. So our Kapital for the Rebbe this year, the Rebbe's Kapital for us this year, is Kuf Yates, and it encompasses 2 days, 2 Giluyim, Koi and Havaya, Zeh. A presence which is indirect, which is hard to identify and interpret, and one that is direct. So Koidem Kol, when you want to talk about Mailis, everything has to have a Maile. It says Mamar Chasidus. I saw this in Ayin Beis, also saw it in a Maimer in Ayin Tes, where the Rebbe Rashab says something that we all know, but it says Befedish in a Maimer Chasidus, that there's a very big Maile in the later Nevi'im over the earlier Nevi'im. A very big Maile in the later prophets over the earlier prophets, because they didn't see clearly. You know, in Lashon HaTorah, there were chazoin and not re'iyah. There was chizoin, not re'iyah. In other words, they saw on a lower level more indirectly than on a higher level and more directly. And the maila is that when you don't see as clearly, you describe the furniture. When you see clearly, you see only king and you don't understand anything around it. And the consequence, of course, of this is that the Kabbalah that we have from Tanakh is dafka from the latest Nevi'im, from Yecheskel, Babuzi, rather than Yeshaya Hanavi. They both have a Merkava. Yeshaya's Merkava is 1 pasuk, and Yecheskel's Merkava is 30 Pesukim, gigantic, very detailed. Like 2 people enter into a king. The fellow who relates to the king directly sees nothing but the king. The fellow has a very hard time relating to the king, like you have in the Perik Membeis and Tanya. That you come into a chotzer and you see kula mishtachavim leish echad. You don't see the ish echad. You see the kula mishtachavim. It's a lower level. So you're also filled with yira, like it says in Tanya. But the point is, you describe the furniture. You describe the chitzenius. Now we who are in B'chlal Ma'achaychas Ne'enim F'nuvu and Ruach HaKodesh have the benefit of sight. We could learn and try and understand, especially, of course, in Chasidus Chabad, in Yonim of Kabbalah and Seder Ishtalshalus, and we have that mostly from the later Nevi'im. So that's the Maila of Koi over Zeh, Chav Hey over Chavav, the Maila of 25 over 26, which is indirect vision. Over direct and explicit vision is when you don't see clearly, you notice things, like the blind man who taps and touches. Then the one who sees explicitly and directly doesn't notice. Which is why, like I said, it says in Mammon Chasidis, the Nevi'im Achronim, the later the prophets, the more detail they give us about the Merkava, the divine chariot. And then you have the fact that Yom Chav Hey is 12 Oisius of Alabez, and Yom Chav Vav is 10 Oisius of Alabez. This is also very precise, because when you say the number 12, Tayyid is a Shaykhas de Kabbalah, he thinks right away of the 6 midas times 2. The 6 midas times 2. Like you have in Shabbos, in Shabbos we say by day Asade Lesudasa, right? Or Azama B'Shvachin, the Inun Os B'Shmei Kfilo Klisha, right? The Yud Beis Lachmim, you have 12 loaves of bread on Shabbos. In the Beis HaMikdash, there are 12 loaves of bread and the Lechem Aponim, and there are Peilish Tzadikim, you see, if you've ever seen, who Shabbos they use 12 chalas. What's the chayim of 12 chalas? Os, one of the letters of the Eibishter's name, doubled. Which letter of the Eibishter's name is it? Vov. And Kfila Klisha doubled is Vav. Vav is 12. That's the cheshbon. So the union of 12 reminds us of the idea of 6 as it's doubled, which in Kabbalah is Yud-Beis Gvuli Alachsen. Without going into too much mysticism, because all of this I'm really saying off the cuff, I didn't prepare to say all these things. The idea of Yud-Beis Gvuli Alachsen is Chitzenius HaMidas. You see, the Midas are very strong. So strong that it's like a person who's so full of information that he can't say anything. So you have to diminish the Midas. How do you diminish the midas? You dilute each midah by its counterpart. Chesed with hoid, because chesed is mekava yamin, and hoid is mekava smeil. Called vuli alachsen, a crooked, a diagonal line. So the midah, it reveals itself because it's been diminished by a counterpart from another kav, and so forth and so on. So the number 12 reminds us of the midas, and on the lower level of the midas, the gili of the midas. And of course, the number 10 reminds us of the 10 spheres, which includes everything, including moichin. Everything, right? From the highest levels to the lowest levels. So you see, Hashgacha Pratis, that 2 days in the month are connected to Kuf Yotes. The 25th day in the month, when you say 12 Oisius of the Alabez, and 12 is 2 times 6, which is a gili of a lower level, Chetenias Amidis. But in terms of the world, that's what the world needs. The world needs what it can get, not idealism and truth that's impractical and unrevealable. The next day, the 26th day of the month, which corresponds to Shem Havayeh, and then it goes into 10 Sfiras. The 10 Sfiras, of course, starts much higher than the 6 Midas, but it also ends much lower than the 6 Midas. Like it says, the Lashon, that the regel of Abba is Oruch. The regel of Bina is, the foot of Chochmah is very long. The foot of Bina is shorter. In other words, when you come from a higher level, you extend to a lower place. And that's the cheshbon of the 10. That since you're starting from the very top, you extend all the way till the very bottom. Like it says in Chassidus on the pasuk, Anoichi Shleim Ne'emuni Yisrael, the kavona is the Shvinim Shech Lamata. Anyway, das ist Drush und Remez und Baba Meises. That we're starting today, pasuk Tzadik Zayin, verse 97 in Psalm 119, which the way the Tehillim is divided up into the Chitas of Yemei HaChodesh, is the second day, right? Everything until now was Chavhei, Koi. It's a Gilui of Chitanias. Beginning now, it's Chavav. Chavav is Shem Havayeh, it's revealed, and it comes from the highest level to the lowest levels, as it's represented by the Eis Yud, which comes from the beginning of Seder Ishtashlos to the end of Seder Ishtashlos. Anyway, now that I've given you a pshat, which I literally didn't think through before I said it, let's get to the part of the Shir that I prepared. And I cannot promise you that the part that I prepared is going to be much better than the part that I concocted, because the part that I prepared, I also to a great extent concocted. But not entirely. You see, I looked into different Mefarshim on this Pedic. I always learn Rashi and the Mitzudis, and then they have the Radak, and they have an Ezra and the Meiri, and then I looked the little bit that you have from the Rebbe Sichos on this Pedic. So we start with the following. First, let's read the Pesukim inside, yeah? Let's read the 8 Pesukim inside. This is my Tillim that I use. So we're going to learn the 8 Pesukim inside. We're going to read them, and we're going to translate them. And then the first thing we're going to do after we do that is we're going to identify code words for these 8 Pesukim, as we always do. It's getting harder and harder as we go. But let's go. Okay, the pasuk Tzadik Zayin begins, Mo ahavti seidesecha. How much do I love your Torah? So the Meiri writes something gavaldik. Mo. The word mo could mean very little, like dvav shel ma bakach, very, very little. And the word mo could mean infinite, enormous, like mo rav tufcha shetzafant l'riecha. The word mo connotes two opposite things. Davar shel ma bakach, an insignificant little detail, and it connotes something which is bligvul, and they're both relevant, both indicative. Mo, my love for your Torah is for every little detail, and my love for your Torah is bligvul. Kol hayom, all day long, he sichasi, she is my talk. And some of the Mefarshim say, the Rebbe says, that sichasi means like sichas chulin shel talmidei chachamim, even my idle chatter. The nanishkeiten, that people during the course of the day learn Torah and do mitzvahs, and they have sichas chulin. And of course, we're speaking about dvarim b'teilim beheta, naturally. And the sichas chulin shel talmidei chachamim, sicha limud, it says in the Maimer of Chasane, which so many people learn, that he sichasi means even when I'm not learning Torah, my sicha, my sichas chula, my ordinary talk is in the inyanim of Torah. Me'evait chachmein. Oh, I got smart from my enemies. My enemies made me smart. My enemies chachmein, smart me up, wizened me up, mitzvah to your mitzvahs, kilielam hili, because your mitzvahs are forever. And forever it can mean two things. Forever means they always existed, and forever means they will always exist. And we'll get to that momentarily. But maybe the Chakmeni means my enemies smartened me up, wizened me up. So the Mefarshim say, I got smart from Deg and Achitefel. And one of the points that they mentioned was that Ein Halacha Kamesim, that they were bigger than the Chum David HaMelech. But the halachas like David are not like them. And David learned from the fact that the halacha is not like them and like him what wisdom is. Me'evai, from seeing the way it played out. And my enemies, Tachakmeni benich gevoren, not smarter, but wiser. I became humbler and more aware of the truth of things, that the truth of Torah is not only based on who's smart and who's less smart, but the truth of Torah is based on li'elam hili. And lo'ilam has several connotations. Number one, lo'ilam means I don't separate the Torah from the world. I don't see the Torah as a theoretical thing. The Torah is very much in the world. Like you'll see in a couple of Pesukim from now, the bottom of my foot is also involved in the Yonam of Torah, and he li, so it says in Chazal, and I'll talk about this later. Li means in eternity. So from these enemies, who were such brilliant men, and yet they were not zeichet to learn Torah lishma, they were not zeichet to learn the Torah in a way of asuki lishmaitis alibedei hilchaseh. They gave me wisdom. And why was I zeicha to have wisdom where they didn't have it? Kilielamili, because Torah to me was two things. Number one, it was in the world, it was practical. And number two, it was eternal. And he continues, of course, and he says, he's a very, very famous Pesukim, Mikol malam de'eskalti, all my teachers wizened me. All my teachers gave me more intellectual, intuitive. My official teachers, my unofficial teachers. And then, of course, doesn't the Pirkei Yavis, Ezeu chacham aleimid mikol adam. David HaMelech would learn from anybody or anything to say. And again he says, Ki eidveisecha sichali, Ki eidveisecha sichali, because your witness is my idle talk. And again he uses the word sicha, and he uses the word li. I was able to learn from everybody, because the Torah is not something that I do on a schedule. It's my sicha. Even when I'm talking dvarim b'teilim, I'm involved in divrei Torah, and li, it's an eternal way. Eidus, I see the Torah as a witness. We're going to get to this later on in Mitzvah Hashem. And I was there for Zecha to learn from everybody. And because I learned from everybody, my Torah was Miskay. Mizkeinim Mizbeinim. And in addition to learning from everybody, I also learned from wise sages. Zeshakona Chochma. I was able to contemplate. Ki fikudecha natzarti, because your mitzvahs I guarded. Or to say it more precisely, Ki fikudecha natzarti, your mitzvahs guarded me. And it says in the Mefarshim that David HaMelech concedes that he was a tzaddik. And the Yivesach Lashna Gemara, Ashre Yaldoseinu Shalei Bisha Ziknaseinu. The tzaddikim used to say by Simchas Beis Hashayeva, fortunate that our youth, that did not embarrass our senior years. The human nature is that people are much more prone to sin when they're young. When they get older, they're far less prone to sin. So there's the Gemara that says, Ashre Ziknaseinu Shekipra Yaldoseinu, that our senior years were a kapara for our junior years. That's the Baal Tshuva. And then there's Ashra Yalduseinu Shleibisha Zignaseinu. The tzaddik says, my youth did not embarrass my senior years, because when I was young, I was also dedicated. And that's the pshat. I was particular about Kiyum HaTorah b'mitzvahs even when I was young and I was vulnerable. Mikol Eirech Ra, from every bad way, which the Mepharshim give different translations. Bad friends, bad midas. Kalasi Ragle, or Kalisi Ragle, I removed even my feet. To guard your words. A person wants to guard the words of the Eibush, there has to be even the raglaim have to be guarded, as you'll see later on. I did not turn away from your judgment. And the way I understand the word mishpatecha is that at this point, David is no longer talking about his own tate, his own mitzvahs, but David is talking about himself as a dayan. I'm a judge. In as much as I am a judge, I did not turn away from your judgment. You showed me, you enlightened me. Torah oir. Torah is in the word Torah. You showed me the Torah. You showed me your hand in the world, and you showed me your light, and therefore, when I pass in a shaila, I'm not magal upon him, I'm not nesei upon him, and so on and so forth. I don't turn away from the correct judgment. How sweet to my palate are your words, midvash lefi, and how sweet is your Torah, more than honey to my mouth. So you have two expressions. You have the Mepharshim said there's a missing word. Manimtzu mat'ame Torah lechiki, and imrasecha midvash lefi, that the Torah is sweet, and then sweet again. Okay, we'll get back to it later on. Me bigudach mezbeinen, from your mitzvahs I did his bonanus, and because of that I hate every path of sheker. Now the connotation of the word erech sheker we'll see later on, but path is a good thing. Path means a shita and a derech, but you can have a path and a shita that looks very, very good. If the foundation is sheker, then the building which is built on that foundation is sheker as well. And David HaMelech says that because of his bonanus and the Eibishter's mitzvahs, kol erech sheker, every pathway, if the yesod is sheker, he's not mispol from the chitzenius of it, he identifies that the emes is sheker and therefore sanesi. So Rabbi said we just read and translated the 8 Pesukim. I know that was a little bit more than just a literal translation, but now we're going to go on to our introduction, which is, what is the words that are yesod of this Perek? And you understand quite well that the answer to that question is an emphatic IDK. I don't know. How do I know what the emphasis of these Pesukim are? I don't know. But 3 words beckon me. 3 words say maybe me. So in the past, I used to choose a single word. Now I'm having a much harder time choosing a single word. So there's going to be 3 key words to this 8 Pesukim sequence. Ma, and Li, and Sicha. And they really appear mostly in the beginning. Ma, and Li, and Sicha. Okay? Ma, and Li, and Sicha. Now, I told you that it says in Me'iri, who's a Rishon, 2 interpretations to the word Ma. The first interpretation of Ma is Ma b'kach, a little triviality, a tiny little detail. And also Ma miloshen hafla. When you want to describe something which is infinite, you say Ma rav tuvchat fantlariach, right? Or in Lashon HaGemara, Pa'ata, Ma de Shem Lekecha Shem imach kiyim liyira, Ata yira, and Milsa would say Ma Shem Lekecha. What does Eibishter want from you, kiyim liyira? So some people look at the Wa and said it's not a big deal. And some people say, look at what this Eibishter wants you the highest madregas. So when the word Ma, you have both of these connotations. So when it says Ma'af Tiseiresecha, I already told you before, Ma means I love even little details of Torah, and it means I love the Torah infinitely. But there's a third translation of Ma. And this, of course, is Chassidus. And the third translation of Ma is that the word of Ma is Lashon Bittel. Like you find in Chumash that Moshe and Aaron say a number of times, V'nachnu Ma. V'arin mahu kitalinu olav. V'nachnu ma means bittel. Right? If you studied Chassidus Chabad, you know that the word chokhmah is called koyach ma. It's the power of humbling oneself. It's the power of bittling oneself to something which is beyond him. And when one surrenders, when someone acknowledges the limitation and their inability to exceed themselves, and they humble themselves because of their ignorance, or because of that not knowing, or because of that station, that humility itself brings out unbelievable koyches, higher koyches. And that's the pshat mo. Mo means bittul. Avraham Avinu, it says also Avraham Avinu is Eiver Ma. There's Ramach Mitzvahs. Avraham is Begematria Reish Mem Ches, as you know. Eiver Ma. The Eiver means like you have, you say, well, Eiver it goes on the Eivorim. The Ramach Mitzvahs, in Ramach Pikud, in Ramach Eiverim the Malka. Yeah? And there's Eiver Ma. Eiver Ma means that every Eiver of the Ramach Eivorim has Ma. The reason Alakus, the reason Shechina rests on Avraham Avinu, because in Ma. So that's the type, 3 translations of the word Ma. Ma means a little detail. Ma means an enormity, which is Adin Ketz Adin Sof. And Ma means bittul. And then, of course, the word li, right? Chalbavach see another word li because it's in the pasuk, Pada b'shalom nafshi mekrav li kibrab ma'yemadi, and also in the pasuk in Chumash, v'yikhu li truma. And in Tanya Perek Mem Zayin, Al Rebbe said we should say v'yikhu li utruma, because li means that eisi atem like him. But it's explained in Chassidus that the meaning of the word li, it says medrash, kol makam shneim li, and it says the word li to HaKadosh Baruch Hu means something which is forever. It's eternal. It's forever. So the second word of these words, which we're going to be focusing on, is the word li. That David HaMelech's relationship to the Torah is an inyan nitzchi. For David HaMelech's relationship to the Torah to be something which is eternal, his sense of what Torah is has to be that the Torah is in eternity. Or, as we had in earlier classes, based on the Rambam's 13 principles of faith, a clear and a firm recognition and dedication to the idea that Torah is a David Nitzch, Torah never changes, like it says in Rambam. Which, according to Shittas Rambam, is one of the Gimel Ikrei HaEmunah. So Li means that it's forever. And finally, Sichasi. And again, the simple meaning of the word Sichasi is like Sichas Chulin. Chatter, idle chatter, Narishkeit, mentioned Aiden. People talk all kinds of things, and of course we don't mean Chas V'Shalom Dvarim B'Telem, even maybe Dvarim B'Telem B'Hete, but we mean the idle chatter of people who are pata from Limud HaTorah B'Chol Rega V'Rega. It's not Bittul Torah for them. And the taich of Sicha is that even though they're involved in simple things, it's their simple things are Torah. People who are steeped in a certain philosophy or in a certain mindset or in a certain perspective, whatever they do, you hear that perspective. I had a mechutn who learned by Rabbi Nissen Nemen of Alosham, who's my Nelta Zayda through marriage. So he told me that every Fabring of Rabbi Nissen was the same. Everyone was the same. You heard one, you heard them all. You heard them all, you heard them one. Kabbalah Sale, Bittel, he was such obsessive Kabbalah Sale, he practiced what he preached. So he came and off on Rebbe. The Rebbe spoke of Fabring, and he gave a certain lesson about a certain approach. I forgot what it was, but my mechutn told it to me more than once, that they sat on the Fabring, and then this is on the Fabring, and how do we understand what the Rebbe said? And the Baruch was thinking, we're going to get a different kind of a Fabring, because he started to go for the word from the Rebbe, which had a different aspect. Within 30 seconds, he was back to Kabbalah Sel. Whatever the Rebbe said was Bittel and Kabbalah Sel. Favos, because Kala Yemi Sechase, he was a real chassid, or a real ovid, and this was his obsession, this was his whole life, the end of Bittel. And the end of Kabbalah sales, so every word that came out of his mouth, even when he was talking about other things, turned out to be the end of Kabbalah sale. But I want to add something additional. And that is that it says in Gemara, it's brought in Chassidus, it says in Rashi, even in Chumash, Vayetze Yitzchak l'suach. Ba'asodeh ein sicha ela tefillah. Sich is one of the words that conjures up tefillah. So how do you connect these two? And by the way, what I just said about sicha being sichas kulin is based on the Rebbe sichas on these Pesukim, on this pasuk. So the shaila is, what's the connection between sicha meaning sichas chulin, idle words, and sicha meaning ein sicha latfila? So the teretz is a pashter. If you've ever learned Chassidus, I'm of Mishpatim, and I guess I'm of Shmois, from Lakuta Sichas Eichet Feran, that it says in Chassidus, in Pashas Nayach, by the Aflaga, Vahi lohem halaveina lo oven, V'achaymer hoylem lachaymer. So there's stone and there's brick. Stone and brick serve a very similar purpose. Stone has to be quarried, cut out of a mountain, and cut the shape and size, and then put where it belongs. And brick has to be created b'dayad. You put mud together, you put it in an oven, you bake it, and it becomes hard and strong and heavy and so on. What's the difference? Stone the Eibishter created. Brick man creates. And in Chassidus, this is discussed, Variches, and Begeta Mitzrayim, where it says, Vayiru elkei Yisrael v'tachas raglav k'maisa livna sasapi. Livna from the word levena, which means brick, because the Mitzrayim Yidden made bricks. So it says in Chassidus that Evan and Levena is oisius, words, letters. What's the difference? Evan is oisius, Levena stones that are bidei shamayim, and Levena is oisius that are bidei. Evan is words that come from heaven, and Levena is words that come from the world. Bepashtus, it's the difference between Lashon HaKodesh in other languages. Lashon HaKodesh is Evan, language is Levena. But it's also the difference between Teira and Tefillah. When a person's davening, he's repeating the words of the Eibush Tekeini Acharat Kede, like it says Tal Shani Mersecha at the end of Kuf Yodes. But when a person's davening in Sicha El Tefillah, using his own words. And when a person is davening and using his own words and using his own heart, that's his own Eisius, it's his own letters, it's his own Sicha. He's taket davening to the Eibush, he's connecting himself to the Eibush, he's mevatel himself to the Eibush, and perhaps he's going in his way, in a level which is even higher than a tzaddik, but he's on his own. And that's the Tach Sicha. Ein Sicha ella Tefillah. Tefillah means Eisius Derebidei Adam. The whole concept of davening is a relationship with the Eibishter. The whole concept of davening is a relationship with the Eibishter that's based on us. And therefore there is some similarity. I'm just speaking to my technical people. I turned off this light because it's putting me to sleep. I just can't. Every day these lights put me to sleep. It's much. The class looks so much better like this, yeah. But I'll put it on soon. I'm feeling myself falling asleep, and I just feel that the beam of light is just sucking my chayes. So we'll have to figure it out. In other environments, I'm not given a choice. But doben echashtikol balabas. So there's two taichin in sicha. Sicha means sichas chulun, ordinary words, and sicha means sicha lashon tefillah. And the connection between the two is that you're taking the ordinary and making it extraordinary. So today we chose three words: ma and li and sicha, or li and sicha. And I tried my best briefly to explain each one. The first one, ma, we're saying three different things. Ma means a little detail, and ma means an enormity, right? Ma is higher than meya. Tikra meya. So ma is higher than meya, more than 100, which is shleimus. And then, of course, the base of these two translations and the support and the chayes and the neshama of these translations is the third translation. Ma means bittel. And then, of course, li, in Yizaz li'ela. And sicha, which means sichas chulin, and it also means divrei teira. Divrei tefillah. Because when a person's davening, he's using his own words to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, now give me a minute. I'll be back in a second. And I'll start learning inside. Okay, I apologize about the interruption. Let's start. Ma ahafti sedasecha. What does ma mean? Oh God, how I love your Torah. Here they put in an O. Avifel. Ma ahafti sedasecha. How much do I love your Torah? All day long I talk about it. It reminds me of the words that you have in a Yom Yom, that the Alter Rebbe heard his Rebbetzin say, his wife, Meiner sagt, my husband says, Meiner sagt. And the Alter Rebbe went into Hedvekes, and he said, Mit ein mitzvah bin ich deine. Mit mitzvahs wieviel bin ich dem Eibeshtens. In one mitzvah I'm yours. In mitzvahs how many do I belong to HaKadosh Baruch? And then he said, that through a wife, a person goes out of himself and he sees a lukus. Right? That's a touch. More hafti seirasech. More hafti seirasech. Avifel. How much? A wife says about her husband, he's mine. And he doesn't say it isn't true. But he says, if I'm yours, how much more am I the Yebishtis? I'm yours with one mitzvah, the Yebishtis with kol atera kula. And more hafti seirasech ataka means, how much do I love the Torah? Because if you're familiar with Chassidus, and this is also common sense, but it explains so much in Chassidus, that the difference between Torah and mitzvahs is that any part of Torah that a person learns connects you to all of the mitzvahs. When you're doing one mitzvah, you're not doing another mitzvah. When you're studying Torah, whatever point in Torah you're learning, you're connected to Kol HaTorah Kula. So how much love, says David HaMelech, how much love do I have Teirasecha for your Torah? Mo ahavti Teirasecha. How much do I love your Torah? And of course, this is not a question; it's a statement of aggrandizement and endearment. Right? He's. You don't want to use the word exaggerating because he can't exaggerate, but he's speaking in an exaggerated tone about something that you cannot exaggerate. How much do I love the Torah? In other words, as much as you're going to say, I love it more. Why? Because more hafti seirasech. At the base of my av is bittul. Right? In Chassidus it says that every love is based on yesh. Yesh mi she'oyev. I love God because I love me. So that it becomes in one way or another a limited love. But more hafti seirasech. At the base of my love for the Eibush is more. Is my ability to be submissive, to be bottled to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to the extent that there is no ego. And therefore, more ahavti seirasech. I love the Torah so much. And the real symptom, this me'idi is so powerful. The real symptom, there's a few words, that the word more could mean a teeny detail, and the word more could mean something which is bahaflogo, bahaflaw, something which is very great. And he says, he doesn't say it exactly, but he says it indicatively, and both are intended. That when you love the Torah in an infinite way, the symptom, the proof that you love the Torah in infinite ways, that you pay attention to the little details, to the trivialities, to the klein shikizachalach, to the dvorim shal mabakach, or as the lashon in the pasuk is, v'haya eikev tishmun dvorim sha'adam dashpa cave, of things that people tend to be disregarding and not particular about. Mo'ahavti seirasech. Like, the fact of life is, the famous Chumash Rashi about the Balaischa, that the Rebbe brings so often. Aaron HaKohen was lighting the menorah. And according to Chassidus and Kabbalah, when Aaron lights the menorah, it's the Madreg of Avarabba, a love which is higher than Atzilus, an infinite love. And then, nevertheless, Vayas Kain Aaron Kashativ Hashem es Moshe, when he lit the menorah, he lit it like he was told. And he didn't say, I'm involved in big things, who cares about the little things? You hear just taina a lot. Why is Yiddishkeit so into details? And of course the answer is, Yiddishkeit is not so into details. Yiddishkeit is so into details also. The ultimate proof that one is engaged with something is that every little detail matters, not just the big things. No one's going to buy a car and say it's enough that the engine works and the seats are there and it's safe. You want it to be pretty? In a relationship with the Eibishter, which is infinite, which is gargantuan, which is more. In the infinite side, you want the more. Every detail, every little tiny aspect should be exact. Otherwise, there's a sin, there's a chassan in the ahava. And that's what David HaMelech is saying. More hafti seirasech. Because the base of my love is bittul, therefore the expression of my love is infinite. And the manifestation of my love is in every little detail. Like the story I told you a while back about a Yid who asked the Rebbe why we have to be so particular about the details, and the Rebbe answered him, the details are for us, which is of course explained in Tanya Sof Perek Mem Vov. The details are for us. The details create a measure of the preciseness of our involvement with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Like the story with the Alter Rebbe and the Baditchev Rav, the Baruch measure, which I also told you, that the Baditchev said to him, I'm not repeating the stories Barichas because I told them already in this series. Ich weiß nicht, was du willst von meinem Bechuten. Der Baditchev said to the Baruch measure, I don't know what you want from my Bechuten. Ich hab gesehen Leinen, I saw them laying in the Torah. Und ist gewesen Kulei Lamata, und hat nicht ausgelost keinen Tag Lamata. I say he was completely in the heavens, and didn't miss a crown down here. His reading was exact, was precise, was perfect. Because that's the sign of ultimate love. The sign of ultimate love is that every little detail is precise. And that's Ma'ahafti Seidasecha. That's how much I love the Torah. And of course, one of the expressions is Kol Hayom Yisichasi. All day long I talk about it. And Kol Hayom, and this, Apechsidis Kol Hayom means Gilui Oyer. But Kol Hayom Yisichasi means this is my Sicha. This is what I talk about. You know, they say that the joke of a Ben Torah is the Sichas Chol Shatamidei Chomim Sicha Limud, the fact of life. A person who's seeped and saturated with Torah, whatever he talks about, he can't help but it should be Torah. And that's the symptom. The raya that there's a Ma'ahafti Seidasecha is Kol Hayom Yisichasi. And of course, we all know what it says in the Maimed of Chasana, that Sichas Chulin Shel Talmidei Chachamim Tzricha Limud, the idle chatter of Talmidei Chacham needs to be studied and analyzed because it's very, very precise. And of course, the word bepashtus is that afilu sichas chol shel Talmidei Chacham tzricha limud. Not only the divrei Torah of Talmidei Chacham, but even the dvarim betelim also tzricha limud. But in the Maimed of Chasana, the Rebbe adds something deeper, that sometimes the sichas chulin have even a higher shadish. Like he brings over there about the idea of a bedicha, that it says in Mittel Erebes Maimorim that laughter is magia and tainig apash they built a murkav and built a murgish cloud. So it's not only that the sichas chulun shel tzarich limit, because there's chokhmah there also, but sometimes in the idle words of Talmud Chacham there's even deeper chokhmah kvayachol than in Terasim Bavidasim. Like in the Chumash, Sefer Bereishis is stories, and Shmos begins the mitzvahs, and yet the Seides HaTorah Genuzim Ba'agodes, the stories of the Torah have deeper secrets than even the Divrei Halacha and Din mitzvahs b'pel mamish. And that's also included in Kol Hayom Yisichasi. Me'evay Tchakmeni. I got smart. I got smart from Oivai, from my enemies. And what is the nature of my smarts? The nature of my smarts is that I should do what I said in the last pasuk, Mo'ahafti and Kol Hayom and Yisichasi. From my enemies I learned that Torah is not a job, and Torah is not a schedule. Torah is a life. Yiddishkeit is a life. Mitzvahs are a life. But in these Pesukim, we're talking specifically about Torah. Torah is a life. And who taught me this lesson, that of Chokhmah, of wisdom and humility, that Torah has to be something which is more Ahazis Eresecha and Kol Hayom and Yisichasi. Whatever I'm doing, learning Torah, I learned this from my enemies. Who are the enemies of David HaMelech? So we talked about this last time. Before, the enemies of David HaMelech are Deig and Achitefel, who were Gedeli Torah. But the halach is not like them. The halach is like David HaMelech. Like it says in Gemara, the Pasuk, Hashem Imei Halacha Kamesi B'Kol Mokim. It's brought in Samach Bav Barichis that the halach is like David HaMelech. And David HaMelech understood from the fact that he was Zeichet Halacha Kamesi, and the Oivai were not Zeichet Halacha Kamesi, K'moisam, that he has to figure out what he's doing different than them to understand why. And what did he discover? The idea of Mo Avti Seidasecha Al Kol Hayom Yisichasi. You don't just learn Torah, you delight in Torah, you love Torah, and you do it all the time. And because of this, he was Zoicha that the halacha is like him, right? Me'evay Tchakmeni, from my enemies I got smart. And of course, in some of the Mefarshim it says, the Rebbe brings it down, that if you want to know whether you're doing the right thing, look what the Seinei Yisrael, the Seinei the Mesanei Hashem, what's the lashon of the pasuk? That somebody who hates a Yid, hates the Eibush. If you want to know what's right, look at what the Seinei Yisrael say, and then you'll know the opposite is correct. So by looking at my enemies, I knew that the opposite of what they're telling me, Chachmeni, is correct. And I learned it from them, and part of what I learned is Ki Li'olam Hi Li. And the Olam has two emphases. We're talking about Torah. Emphasis number one, that La'olam means it has to come down into the world. Right? Like La'olam El Ha'olam. I told this to you before. La'olam doesn't mean forever. Li means forever. La'olam means es muss kommen in Welt. The reason my Torah is emes, and their Torah is not emes, Allah is not like them. The reason I was Zeicha, says David HaMelech, that Allah kamoi see, and Allah is not kamayhem ki li'olam, because when I learned the Torah, I always thought about the Torah in the context of the world. And I'll give you two insights over here. The first, of course, is practical, like it says in Chassidus, about Divrei Torah. There's a lot of different expressions like this. Like v'chol banayach talmidei chachamim ma'bem shalom ba'elam shenem v'chol banayach limudi Hashem v'rav shleim banayach. And of course the question is, it shouldn't v'chol banayach atik banayach ela boinayach, right? Those who build. And the shaila is, what does people who build have to do with v'chol banayach v'rav shleim? But the Ikakash is, it should say, V'chol banayach limudei Hashem. The Ikar is limudei Hashem, not banayach. People who learn Torah. And what do they mean? The people who are building the world. And of course, there's many answers to the question. And of course, one of them is limud amanas lasis. When a person learns Torah just for the sake of the Torah, that's not Torah. If a person learns Torah to do the Torah, that's Torah. Or like the Rebbe often says, Torah is not a chokhmah. Torah is a chokhmah also. Torah is life, like it says in the Feedim. That when the Yidden traveled, Yisrael feed him. They came to Yachid to feed him. Says Chazal, Rafu Yudayim Divrei Torah. Their hands became weak from Divrei Torah. So the question that's asked is, why does it say Rafu Yudayim, but you say Rafu Meichesayim? Their minds, not their hands. And the answer is the credibility, and Torah is La'olam, right? La'olam Hili, La'olam. How the Torah translates into Kiyama mitzvahs. In other words, when a person learns Torah, it's not the pshat Torah is an from limud, and there's also limud amanas lases to know the halacha. But the definition of Torah is that it teaches you something. Definition of Torah is Torah. Definition of Torah is a practical thing. The lesson from the Rebbe, there's how you learn the Torah, but how the Torah learns you. And in Yiddish, how Torah learns you means the Torah teaches you something. And that David understood. Ki li'olam hili, that in every aspect of my olam, in every aspect of my helam, I have to bring in the Torah. In other words, the Torah is not ideas which remain in theory. The Torah is an idea that fills my world, my helam. That means my practical life and my even part of life which has a shaykhs to the opposite of the Yetzer Tov. I bring the Torah there as well. That's such ki li'olam. And of course, the second type of li'olam is, it says in Tanya Perikov Hey. Perikov Hey in Tanya is a very interesting chapter, I think. I taught it for many, many years as a Parnasa Poshit, so the Perek is strong to me. Perek Chafei in Tanya. When the Rebbe got married, his father wrote him a letter. And his father writes to him in that letter that in the day of Chasan he should learn Tanya Perek Chafei. B'kavona avoloi be'iyun. He shouldn't learn the Torah be'iyun. He shouldn't learn the Perek academically, scholarly. He should learn it b'kavona. In other words, he should learn the Perek not to get the ideas of the Perek, but to get the practical message of the Perek. And the practical message of the Perek is, Mesiras Nefesh. But in the course of Perek Chav Hey, which talks about Mesiras Nefesh, one of the ideas that comes up twice is the idea of Lamayla Min Azman, that things that we do in time happen higher than time and they're forever. And he speaks about this in the beginning of the Perek, how it applies to Avedis, which is a very complicated and not such a pleasant few lines. And then later in the Perek, he speaks how to do with mitzvahs. And he brings that Yichad Zel Lamaylo Nitzchil Elva, the Yid does a mitzvah, there's an eternity. There's an audio tape of a few seconds of the Rebbe saying this Shtikei Tanya and translating it into Yiddish with an incredible amount of instructions. One Jew does one mitzvah, so he creates a connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu an ewigkeit, for an eternity, forever. But the diuk is v'yichad zel l'mayla, that l'mayla higher than time, the yichad an inyan nitzchi. L'mata meyazman, the Alter Rebbe says, but when it comes to time itself, it's not an yichad nitzchi. Because after you do a mitzvah, you do another thing and another thing, another thing. So now, if you learn the Pedic superficially, you understand it very simply. I do a mitzvah from 10 o'clock to 5 after 10, or from whatever it is, 12 minutes to 12 till 11 minutes to 12, and then I move on to something else. In time, I'm no longer doing it. But if you look at the Tanya carefully, very carefully, you'll see that that's not what the Alter Rebbe is saying. And I'm going to open up the book, okay? The Alter Rebbe says that when you do a mitzvah, you create an eternal bond. Ella, I'm reading inside. It's only Shalamato, that down here, hu tachas asman. We're underneath the limitations and the prison of time. Ube'eseh shor levada, and that hour alone. She'esik bo b'teiro b'mitzvah. The one that's preoccupied b'teiro mitzvahs. There's a yichud lamato. Ki achar kach, because afterwards, im esik b'davar acher. If he engages in something other than that Torah and that mitzvah, nifred mi ha-yichud elyon, one is separate from yichud elyon, lamata. But then he translates, v'hainu, what do I mean when I say, says the Alter Rebbe, that when I stop learning Torah and doing a mitzvah, so the yichud stops being lamata, and it's only lamayla, k'she'esik b'dvarim b'telim lagamri. If after I did a mitzvah, I do something which is dvarim b'telim, and the Alter Rebbe has this unique category that it's dvarim b'telim lagamri, and it's not an aveda. I don't want to go into the arichas. She'ein b'mtzedek klal avedis Hashem, which has nothing with avedis Hashem. Meaning to say what? If I did a mitzvah, and then I do a second mitzvah, and a third mitzvah, the yichud of the first mitzvah remains lamata. It's very precise, Alter Rebbe's wording. A yid does a mitzvah, yeah? So in time, he creates a yichud nitzchi with atzmos amhus. No, then he stops doing that mitzvah, so it stops. No, it doesn't stop. Because one mitzvah is not a steer to another mitzvah. One divrei Torah is not a steer to another Torah. So if a person successfully does mitzvahs and Torah, the yichud of all of his Torah and mitzvahs remain lamata me'azman until he does something which is ein b'mtzedek avedis Hashem klau. Then the yichud is no longer lamata and it remains lamayla. And that's the taich. Me'evait chakmeini mitzvesacha ki li'olam hili. Lo'olam means forever, and Lo'olam means tachas hazman. Because David HaMelech was a tzaddik. And David HaMelech was never Mesiach Das Mavedes Hashem. As the Gemara says about David HaMelech. That he didn't have a moment when he wasn't thinking about the Eibush. Right, Fana? First of the Pasuk. David HaMelech in the mikveh was not happy about the fact that he had no mitzvahs until he remembered the mitzvah of Bris Milah. David was involved in the serving Hashem every minute. So La'olam means that even down here in Zman, David HaMelech was involved in every single word of Torah, everything mitzvah engaged in for the duration of his life, because Li'olam Hili. And he learned this from Oivai, Vashtayist. His enemies did learn Torah and did mitzvahs. But it wasn't the way of Li'olam. Kaidam Kol. They made a separation between Torah and mitzvahs. Torah is a sefer of Iyun and Limud and Havana of Asaga and Chedushim. And mitzvahs is something that you got to do, V'mizag. And by Torah, and by David HaMelech, I'm sorry, he saw that Mikol Malam, Me'evet Chakmeini, Mitzvah Sachal Kiliyela Mili. That's from my enemies I learned that the Torah and the mitzvahs can't be separated. The whole point of Torah is doing mitzvahs and bringing the Eibishter into the world. And he brought the Eibishter into the world in such a way that La'olam in this world, the Yichud Nitzchi remained, because he was never Masiach Das in Torah mitzvahs. And therefore he was Eicha Tehili, that the Torah of him is an Inyan Nitzchi. So David HaMelech had enemies who were very frum and they were very learned, but they had certain limitations. David learned from them not to be limited like they were. For example, not to separate learning Torah from doing mitzvahs, and to appreciate that you can't just be makayim mitzvahs, but that the life of a person, like it says in Perek Lamed Aleph, tshuva ma'asim teva. Every minute of David HaMelech's life was Torah v'aveda, and therefore Li'elam, down here in this world, he had a yichud nitzchi with the Eibishter. And then he says in Pasuk Tzadik, Tes mikol malam de yeskalti. I learned from all my teachers. Because your witness is my idle talk. And again, you have the word li, which is the idea of a nitzchi, eternity, right? Mikol malam de yeskalti. I learned from all of my teachers. So, of course, Mikol Malam Deis Kalta means I learned from anybody who would teach. I even learned from Achi Teifel, like it says in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos we read yesterday in Shul and Perek Vov. Perek Achad O'ech Zach Kalachas Kama Vakama Shetzarach Lil Lekovat Shem Metzim V'Dot Melch Yisrael. That he called him Rabbi Elufim Medoy because he learned from him Davar Echad. The way it's explained in the Chassidus from the Baal Shem Tov and so on. Yeah. So Mikol David HaMelech learned from everybody, and of course here you have to be careful from the Gemara. That you have to know right? Not everybody could learn Torah from every person, because if you have a person who's learning Torah Shalei Lishma on whatever levels, there's a sakana that you're going to be makabalat in not such a good way. Rabbi Meir learned Torah from Lisha Acher, and when people said, "How could you learn Torah from a Yid who's not in the way he's supposed to be in Yoni Amuna?" So the Gemara answers, Rabbi Meir was able to separate the fruit from the peel. Teichei Ochal, he ate the fruit, and the klipa he threw away. David HaMelech was in a similar Maimed Matziv. So Mikol Malam Deis Kalta, he could learn Torah from everybody, even from people who are learning Torah Shalei Lishma, because he separated the Torah from the Shalei Lishma, and he raised it up. Mikol Malam, I learned from everybody. But in addition, of course, Mikol Malam Dai means I even learned from little children. Mikol Malam Dai means I even learned from the simplest person. David HaMelech was not above letting anybody teach him a lesson. From a Gemara, I think in Masechet Chagiga, one of the Tanoim said that I was never defeated by anybody except that Ayalad mit Ayalda. Everybody has something to teach. And a person who's a real student learns Mikol Malam Deis Kalta, I learned from everybody. But David HaMelech says Mikol Malam Deis Kalta, I didn't just learn from everybody. From everybody I got Seichel. Seichel means wisdom. Seichel means Chidish. David HaMelech found in what other people gave him so much wisdom that it would open up his mind to all different, whole new ways of understanding. That's how humble David HaMelech was, that Mikol Malam, I could learn from everybody. From us, a letter from the Frierdiker Rebbe. It's such an interesting letter. I guess I'll talk about it. The letter was written to his son-in-law. The Rebbe Rayas, the Frierdiker Rebbe, had 3 son-in-laws. The youngest was Menachem Mendel HaKoyen Horenstein, Mendel Horenstein. He married the Frierdiker Rebbe's youngest daughter, whose name was Harabonis Hatzitkonis Shendel. They never had any children. They got married, I think, in Tzadik Beis in 1932. And they actually adopted a little child. They lived in France. They lived close to the Rebbe and the Rebbe, and they were very connected. And the Rebbe and the Rebbe were very makar of them. They went back to Poland when the war started because his mother lived in Poland. His mother was Chaya Mushka Horenstein. She was a daughter of the Rebbe Marash. She was the Frierdiker Rebbe's aunt and the Frierdiker Rebbe's mechuteneste. And they went to save her, and they gave up their lives. They went to help their mother, and they paid with their life. This orphan child that they had adopted was killed. I don't even know if you know his name. And they were killed in Treblinka along with Harabonis Chaya Mushka. She was Pashat, the daughter of the Rebbe Marash, the youngest daughter of the Rebbe Marash. And they didn't reveal to anybody that they were killed. In other words, they allowed it to be equivocal. The Frierdiker Rebbe understood that his children were not showing up in America and they were not having any contact, that they were probably killed. But as long as he wasn't told, they waited for the Histalkus. Till after Frierdiker Rebbe passed away, they didn't talk about it. Because the Rebbe, the Rebbe had a stroke. Frierdiker Rebbe had a stroke in 1945 when he read about the murder of the Chassidim in Riga. So they say that the Rebbe, our Rebbe, started censoring the mail, not letting the Frierdiker Rebbe see in Yonim, but it's Hepech HaToiv. So in Tafshin Yud Aleph, 1951, which was the first occasion of their Yortzeit after the Frierdiker Rebbe had passed away, the Rebbe printed a Kuntes Chaf Hei Cheshvan. That's the date. Kuntes Chaf Hei. It's one of the Maimonim from the Tzadik Dalet. And it's called Kuntes. It's printed in Sefer HaMaimorim Tafshin Yud Aleph from Frierdiker Rebbe, Kuntes Chaf Hei Cheshvan. And in this Kuntes it says that this is Lilu Nishmas, the Frierdiker Rebbe's daughter, and the Frierdiker Rebbe's son-in-law, and the Frierdiker Rebbe's mechuteneste. And it says there was a man in Treblinka who testified to their Yortzeiten. He was with them, and people used to tell each other that if you'll survive, you'll pass along to my relatives the days that they were killed. The Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka was killed, I think, in Elul, maybe Erev Chedesh El Tafshin Aleph yet, 41. And the Rebbetzin Shendel was murdered the second day of Rosh Hashanah. The Rebbe said Kaddish for her. The Rebbe said Kaddish for his sister-in-law based on his wife's Rebbetzins request. And he, Mendel Horenstein, was killed 2 months later, Chaf Hei Chesh. In this kuntres, Chafei Cheshvan, in the back, there's two letters from the Frierdiker Rebbe, one written to her, one written to him. And the Pashas, it's L'schusam L'Ilu Nishmasam. They're very interesting letters. The letter written to her is written in a Yiddish that nobody speaks. It's so cultured, you don't understand half the words. And I don't have time to go into that letter. It's a different discussion. And the letter written to him, the Frierdiker Rebbe writes about Chush. There's Koiches and there's Chush. There's a person who's an artist needs two primary skills to be a successful artist. One is a kisharon, that means a talent, an ability to sing well or to draw well. And the other is a chush. Chush means to feel. And the chush, the feel part of it, of the arts, whether it's music or it's dance or it's the visual arts, is two things. You have to feel what you observe, and then you have to be able to depict the feeling. So a real artist, when he sees something, doesn't only see it, he experiences it. And a real artist, when he depicts it, doesn't have only the kishorin, the talent to make the lines or the curves straight, but through it comes across the lebedigkeit. And apparently, this couple, the Frierdiker Rebbe's youngest daughter and her husband, were very artistic, very into chushim. So the Rebbe writes him a long letter, the Frierdiker Rebbe does. In that letter, he references cryptically our Rebbe. One of the things he says about chushim is that it skips generations. He says the Baditche Verov had an unbelievable chushim music. And today the Frierdiker Rebbe says there's Yehuda Menuhin. The letter was written 85 years ago. Yehuda Menuhin, who was a wonder kid. At that time he was a child prodigy, who was the direct descendant of Baditche Verov. And the Rebbe says it jumped a whole bunch of generations. In other words, he didn't see by the Baditche of his children and grandchildren this chush. And it was mifutach, it was developed many generations later by a great-great-grandson who was a famous musician, Yehuda Menuhin. And then he says that Tzemach Tzedek had a chush in Handasa. Handasa means geometry and mathematics and engineering. And today he says there's an Einikul from the Tzemach Tzedek who inherited those chushim. And he's talking about the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Rebbe's logos is an He doesn't say his name, but it's quite obvious. And he talks about chushim. And in the course of the letter, he tells a story how he and his father, the Rebbe Rashab, were traveling, and there was I don't know what the right word is, there was a display, there was a showing of art from a famous artist named Raphael. Famous artist. I mean, people who know art know that this is, you have to say famous Raphael is a simon of the grace of Madrege from Amaratzes. And the Rebbe and his son, the Rebbe Rashab and the Rebbe Rayatz, the Frierdiker Rebbe, went to look at these three pieces of art, and he describes the three pieces. It's graphic, it's so explicit, so powerful. One is a war scene. And of course, the genius in a war scene, you have thousands of faces. And every face is showing something else. One is showing aggression and victory and desire to kill. The other showing fear and desperation and so on, yeah? The second is a depiction of a courtroom. And also the same thing. There's the accused, and there's the prosecutor, and there's the defense attorney, and there's the relatives of the of the accused, and every face speaks. And the third is a wheat field, and the wheat is already in season. It's I guess it's April or May, and in the foreground of the wheat field, there's a bird perched on a stalk of wheat. And the Rebbe are walking through this museum or this whatever it is that's being shown. And they were standing in front of this picture of the wheat field. And as they're standing there, one of the curators, the people in charge, I suppose, of the museum, comes through with a group of dignitaries. And they stopped to look at the art. The pictures were so good. The art was so alive. It was incredible. And as they're looking at it, a simple peasant comes up, takes one look at this painting, and everyone is marveling at the ability of a human being to recreate such detail with such real living color, and it's almost like a photograph. I mean, an artist, yeah? But it came from his heart, right, from his imagination. And this simpleton walks up to this piece of art and this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. It's the terrible artist. And they turn to look at this nobody and say, what do you know about art and artists? It's genius. He says, listen, I'm a peasant. If a bird perches on a stalk of wheat, the wheat has to bend. It has to bend. It can't stay in its place. So it's beautiful. It's just inaccurate. He was a brilliant artist. He was never in a field. He didn't see what wheat looks like. And he was trying to bring out the point that if you don't have a sense of the reality, there's something deficient about what you're portraying, what you're displaying. This is inachush. The inachush has to come out. In other words, in addition to it being very meaningful, it has to be also very precise. This should be very precise. It has to be very, very meaningful. I forgot why I'm telling you the story. I'm telling you the story because of the Pesukim Mekom Olam Da'iskalti. I could learn from everybody, even from the simplest person. Oh, this is why I'm telling you the story. Because if you're a big chacham, and a peasant comes along to you and says, listen, your art is brilliant, but your reality is faulty, if you're David HaMelech, you can mearn that lesson from me. Kol Malam De'iskalti. I can learn from anybody. My wisdom, my depth comes from the fact that I have humility sufficient humility that I can learn from every person. And like I said before, David HaMelech doesn't only learn something from everybody, he learns haskola, new ideas, creative ideas, wise ideas. And the Mefarshim add noch a kvetch, that mikol malamde, even though I learned from everybody, and I have a Rabbi Muvak, I have a primary teacher and a secondary teacher and a tertiary teacher, and then I have thousands and thousands of people who have given me things along the way. But mikol malamde, more than I learned from many of my teachers, his skalti, I created on my own, by learning the Teda directly from the Meibishn. The Rishonim say this. Mikol malamde, I learned from everybody. But more than I learned from everybody, his skalti, I was able to intuit, I was able to extract, I was able to call from the Teda which the Eibishter gave me. And again he concludes in the same way. Ki eid veisecha, because your witness, sicha li, is my idol, sicha is my idol talk. And wait, I wanted to say one more word before we move on. And the words become lam de eskalti. I want to say to Amoid in the kavod. This is I'm going back a little bit here. That it says in Chassidish Amaisa Bichlach that the Alter Rebbe was sitting and learning Tanya. Alter Rebbe was the author of the Tanya. He called it Beinanim. Alter Rebbe called it Beinanim. Alter Rebbe dedicated 20 years of his life to writing the Sefer. So whoever saw him learning asked him, Rebbe, Tate, Zayde, whatever expression he used, why are you? And he was learning the Tanya, he was being ma'ayin in the Sefer Tanya Kaddish. He says, this is your Sefer. This is Veistach. Nafshe Yotza B'Dabri, your whole neshama is in this Sefer. How is it that now you're sitting and being ma'ayin in your own Sefer? So the Alter Rebbe said, I see in this Sefer more news than I had from my Rebbe Mizrich. I learn in the Tanya and I see more than I heard from my Rebbe. But his skalti, in the end, the haskala of the person himself in Limud HaTeira exceeds everything he learned from all of his malamdim. And the reason is, ki eid v'secha sicha li. And one of the meaning of the word edus is witness. It says in the Sfarim that the meaning of the word edus is there's no chedushim. I'm just repeating what I heard. Right? You know that in Chassidus the word edus is very deep. It says even in Maimorim that edus is even deeper than Chukim. But on the other hand, in the Rebbe Sichis, on these Pesukim, he said edus means just repeating what you heard, or just repeating what you saw. And there's the loyalty of that. In other words, the idea that the Teda is emes. And the Teda has to be left alone. And all I need to do is to repeat the words of the Teda. Just the way the Eibishter gave them. This is Sichali. This is my preoccupation. This is my obsession. This allows the idea of Mekom Lam De'iskalti. The reason the person can learn from everybody. And the reason the person finds Chedusha Teda everywhere, including from his own iyun, is because he knows that the Teda is edus. It's Divrei HaKadosh Baruch Hu that you're supposed to repeat, like a witness repeats what he sees, or a witness repeats what he hears. Precisely, Genoi, B'diyak, exactly. And that contributes to the Teda being eternal as far as David HaMelech is concerned. And it continues again. Now you see what's going on here, right? In Pasuk Tzadik Zayin, David HaMelech declares how much he loves the Teda. In Pasuk Tzadik Ches, in Tzadik Tes, and Kuf, David HaMelech declares how he learns from everybody. He learns from his enemies. He learns from everybody. And then he says, Miskenim. There's wise sages. Miskenim is vain. And I contemplated, I did a hisbonanus based on what I learned from this Kenim. Ki pikudecha natzarti, because your mitzvahs guarded me, as I told you before. Or I guarded your mitzvahs. And of course, there's different translations of the word Miskenim. It's bainon, but in the Mefarshim and the Rishonim, it says that the meaning of an old man, he's not so smart, but he repeats what he heard. He's a Baal Shmua. And miskenim is boinen, old people who just repeat what they heard. And there's no chidusha Torah. There's no news. It's just repeating, like it said about Moshe ben Hurkin, as Beir Sud, She'enim Abed Tipa. He was Sinai. He collected halachas just the way the Eibishter gave them from Sinai. Misgainim, when I look at these senior people, these big people, whose whole lineage is to repeat the shmuas that I heard from that Abbei and believe Shinoi, this gave me a hisbonenus. It gave me something to contemplate. And the contemplation has several aspects. Now, of course, before we continue, there's another type of mizkenim, that mizkenim is Eshekana Chochma. Right? Sages means Eshekana Chochma, one who has acquired wisdom. And of course, we all know the difference between wisdom and knowledge, between wisdom and understanding. Wisdom is intuitive knowledge. Wisdom is true knowledge. Wisdom is an expression of God that's available to us in the world if we would humble ourselves enough to open ourselves up to wisdom. And a Zaken is Kana Chochma. He's acquired a chush in wisdom because of his and David is learning from Zakenim. So there's two insights about Zakenim. One is that they just repeat what they heard. And the other is that they have a gewaldige chush in wisdom. And Miskenim is Beinan. From the Zakenim, David comes to his bonus. And you have to understand the dichotomy here. The meaning of the word Miskenim connotes something which is beyond understanding. Either it's altogether beyond understanding because it's a Kabbalah. I'm accepting what I heard from my father or from my Rebbe. And even if Mizgenim means Zeshekana Chochma, intuitive knowledge is higher than contemplative knowledge, than philosophical knowledge, than analytical knowledge, than knowledge that comes from questions and answers. And according to both Pshatim, David HaMelech says, Miskenim is Beinon. That from these Zakenim, I came to what his bonus. Meaning to say, I didn't abandon what the Zakenim gave me, which is the idea of Kabbalah, or the idea of Chochmah. But I took their zikna, I took their wisdom, I took their intuitiveness, I took their shmuos, and I did a contemplation. And like it says in many of the Rishonim, that real Torah, it says the Akdama of Kufyates, is a combination of Kabbalah and Seichel. The Rambam talks about this, the Rasag talks about this, that all in Yoram Amitiyim, all things that are true, which of course are written in the emes of the Torah, first of all, you have to have, the Torah says exactly, Divrei Harav. And then you have to understand them. You have to understand them with your own mind. And understand them with your own mind in such a way that they're yours. And there's a rare balance between the Mizkenim and the Hizbainim. Because some people get so busy with the Hizbainim that they forget about the Mizkenim. In other words, they forget about the idea that this is bigger than me. And I'm not Eisik B'Teich Shali. I'm not involved in Torah and in Avodah and in Yiddishkeit and in the Eibishter as if it's my own. I need to have a Mizkenim. But on the other hand, the Mizkenim is not enough. That's also his boin. I have to learn and try and understand Torah. Why? Because it's what the Eibishter gave me. The Eibishter gave me an ability to learn and understand the Eibishter's Heilige Torah. And David HaMelech asserts this duality. Mizkenim. From this Kenim I took so much. I took the Shmuas, I took the Kabbalahs, and I took the Ziknas Eshekana Chochma. And his boin, and I wasn't sufficing. I wasn't satisfied with the Chochma that I got from this Kenim, or the Shmuas that I got from this Kenim. Then I wanted to understand his boin. But I never tried to understand in such a way that it discounted, that it discredited, that the source of it is the Kenim. Because then it would be sheker, then it would not have emes. A person who has bina, and he therefore goes away from his chokhmah, the bina is sheker, right? That's why it says in Chassidus to be careful. You have, it was in Sefer Yitzirah state, right? Chakeim havein b'chokhmah v'chakeim b'bina. The one of the expressions that's used in this context is called nukuda be'echola. Nukuda be'echola means you build a big palace of understanding. Make sure the point of chokhmah is still there. Because the point of Chachma get lost, that's terrible. And that's the meaning of the two words. Mizgeinim Mizbeinin. I start off with Zikna, Zeshekana Chachma, and there's some Kabul Shmuis, and then I have a Hizbonenus, but it's guarded, it's still protected by the Kav Chumtin, if you will, by the Zikeinim Mizbeinin. Mizgeinim Mizbeinon. From the elders I took an from Hizbonenus. Kifi Kudecha Na'atarti. One of the Rishonim says that I've been guarding your mitzvah since my youth, and I'm going to go with that derech. I can tell you even who says it. I have my notes here this time. Definitely. From the time I'm young, I've been guarding your mitzvahs. In other words, I was raised well, and I didn't go looking and I didn't explore. I didn't go in Beitas Nishborim. I didn't experiment. I didn't follow trial and error. I was sufficiently tmimistic, loyal and sincere and simple to guard the Torah and mitzvahs, whether I understood them or not. So because in my youth, I guarded the mitzvahs like a child. So now that I'm a senior, Chocham, the head of the Sanhedrin, I'm in a position to do his bonanos and zikna. I analyze intellectually the Torah of the Eibishter and never get separated from the zikna. Fana Sipur, I may have mentioned it to you before in these classes, which is the Yeta Shvuas. No, I told it in a different Fabrengen. So I'll tell you the Maisa. This is the story. The story is that the Teras Chesed used to come to the Tzemach Tzedek for Shvuas. Teras Chesed was the B'nei Zalman Fratkin. He knew Kol HaTorah Kula, backwards and forwards, inside and out. The Meichei Sfarim did not charge him for buying a book. They charged him for looking at it because once he saw it, he didn't need it. He had a photographic memory and a tfisa she'enko meyu. He was a Gaon Eilam. He was a chassid from Tzemach Tzedek. And he had a minig that he would come to the Tzemach Tzedek Shvuas. He was with the Gedalim. And bring Bikurim. He would bring Chedush Torah. And sometime during the course of Shvuas, he would have a chance to present his Chedush Torah to the Tzemach Tzedek. Tzemach Tzedek would listen. And these are Chedush Torah mitim, you understand. And the Tzemach Tzedek would have Hanoah, and this gave him Chayas a whole year. That the Rebbe took from him Advat Chiddush. So one year he came, and he said his Chedush Torah, and Tzemach Tzedek told him, Das Farzen a Mishnah. You forgot a Mishnah. This stunned him. It shook him very much. So he began to think, and he couldn't find the Mishnah, so he finally asked the Tzemach Tzedek in Vasar HaSeder, in which of the 6 Storim of Shas. The Tzemach Tzedek told him he still couldn't find it. He found him with Peidik, what Mesechtem, Chedis, I think, until he chaptzach. He made a mistake. And he was ois mensch. He was so broken. And his comment later, not in front of the Rebbe, but later, does haste you learn Teda Lishma. He said, this could learn Teda Lishma. If you learn Teda Lishma, you don't make such mistakes. And then he added, and these are very sharp words, but he was a gadol. He was in a position to say something like this, not just from emotion, but from an understanding. He said, once, a person who's learned Teda Lishma even one time will never get to this. Which is fire. A yid who was a gadol, who certainly learned Teda Lishma, says you once learned Teda Lishma, you'll never reach this anymore. It's a very disturbing assertion, you know. Like the Layav Tanya Perikid Beis, but that's the word. That's called Mizyenim Izbeina. A person does a Hizbonanus, and he never loses out of the Hizbeina, the Hizkenim, because the Nekuda Beichola, because Mipikudecha Natzarti, right? Ashrei Yalduseinu Shlei Bisha as Ziknaseinu, that he was a tzaddik, and he had the maila of being pure, and therefore there was no sakana in his gain that you have in Pirkei Avos. And of all people, who says this Mishnah in Pirkei Avos? Elisha ben Avuya Omer, that Talei Meteda Yeled L'mohodema that L'dyai Ksuv al Nayar Chodesh Talei Meteda L'zakin is L'ertuchal Nar Mochuk. That he said that when you teach Torah to a child, it's fresh. And because it's fresh, it's forever. So David HaMelech says, Mizgein and Mizbein, and the reason I can do his bonanos in the Inyanim of Torah that are Kabbalah, or that are in Madrega of Zikna, is because Kifudach HaNatzarti. And then he says, Mikol Erech Ra Kalasi Raglei, Kalisi Raglei. There's a silent aleph in this word. From all evil pathways I have I protected my feet from Kol Erech Ra. And I want to look up, there's 3 taishin in the Mefarshim on Kol Erech Ra. Okay, one of them is bad people. Oh, there's just 2. One of them is bad people, and the other is bad midas. Mikol Erech Ra, from bad people, or from bad midas. And you know the word oirach is a very interesting word, because oirach means a road. A road means a derech, a path. And a path means something that's thought through, right? A derech is not something that a person does impulsively. A derech means you've established a whole derech. And there's such a thing as a erech ra, as a path which is evil. Why is it evil? Because the yesod is sheker. You have later on in Pasuk Kuf Dalet, Mi pikudecha is bein al kein shnei kol oirach shach. Again, the word oirach. A path means a shita, a philosophy of life, which is sophisticated and involved. And there's such a thing as erech ra, an evil path. What makes a path evil? That it's an erach shakar, that it started off with a lie. And this is very frequently the case. People have a kernel, have an attitude which is false, and they can build the most profound philosophy about it. But because the foundation is false, the entire philosophy is sheker. And when you look at an erach, when you look at a whole shita, you're very impressed. A whole philosophy, a whole new approach. It's original, it's creative, it's sophisticated, it's effective. And it's yesod is sheker. So its whole reality is ra. And mikol eirech ra, kalisi, kalosi, the lashon is kalisi, right? Because the aleph is silent. But the shadish of the word is kiloyin, ragloi. And of course the diuk of ragloi is even ragloi. I protect even my feet from eirech ra, where eirech ra means a bad person, or a bad guest. That's a pun. Or it means a bad midah. The Rebbe writes that everybody has midas. And tchunas hanefesh, which are the basis for avodas Hashem. But everything that we own has a good and a bad. And you have to be careful from the erech ra, from the aspects of midas rois, that are in our tchunas hanefesh, which are the basis for the shlichus that the Eibishter gives us. And then of course, mikol erech ra, there could be a complete shita, which is very sophisticated, and it's yesod sheker, so its reality is ra. And David HaMelech says, I keep my feet from such a place. Not all. I keep my head from such a place. I keep my feet from such a place. Like it says in the post, I told you before, in the beginning, that was meant v'yachnu b'refidim, sagt die Chazal, rafu yudeim edivrei Teira. So it says in the Maimor, misrafu yudeim, because Teira has to affect the people's hands and feet. Or the other eye is v'haya ekev tishmun, the heel has to hear Teira. Every little detail matters. This is what it says in Tanya Sof Perik Menvav about Yidden and Golos, that we're not lacking oil, lacking Ruach HaKodesh, but the precise performance of details of mitzvahs, including the halachas of muktzah and all the other chumris. That's kolosei raglei. Even the feet have to be exact and precise. That's how you preserve the emes of Yiddishkeit, the emes of Teira. So David HaMelech says, Mikol eirech ra, from every midara and bad person and every derech, kalisi ragli, even my feet I protect. I don't say it's only an action. I only say it's only an inyan chitzeni. Every aspect and action of a person has to be not ra, not connected to ra. Not connected to eirach ra and to eirach sheker. Leman eshmet verecha. The reason I'm so careful, like people say all the time, the world is full of modern ideas. And, from Jews have to learn modern ideas also. This is a big controversy, I'm sure you know, when you get to chinuch. The ability to discern which modern ideas, which aspect of modern ideas can be incorporated into chinuch and which not requires a Ruach HaKodesh. Really, requires a Rebbe ultimately. And that's what this pasuk is saying. We call eirech ra kalisi raglai. You don't understand the ramifications, the effect of a modern shita, of a new derech, because you don't see it till the end. By the time you see it till the end, it's too late. The traditional methods that we have are built, they're tested and proven. And they're built on kedusha, not just on chokhmah, not just on pedagogy, but on holiness. And when we're raising our children, we're not just concerned with their academic advancement and enhancement. We want to preserve their kedusha. And that's why you have to be very careful. We call to preserve every aspect of your words. And the meaning of the words leman eshmet verecha means I'm not doing it out of fear that I should be punished. I'm not doing it out of fear that I'm going to falter. I'm doing it out of reverence for how exact your words are. I want to guard your words exactly. Genoi. And when a person understands that the words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu eshmet verecha have to be guarded exactly and precisely, then you have understanding of the sakana kol eirech ra kalisi raglei. Now, I want to say that I understand the perspective, and I, in some extent, even agree with the perspective of learning new tools of how to raise our children and so on and so forth. But if these new tools are consistent with Torah, they're already in the Torah. In other words, The Goyishkeit says, why don't you try this? If you find that in Torah, then you know it has a place. If you don't find that in Torah, then you have to think about it twice, or 10 times, or 1,000 times. Or as David HaMelech says, Mikol Eidech Rakras Yiraglei, Kalisi Raglei, Leman Eshbeh, to preserve the words of the Eibishter exactly. And of course, this is the greatest trick of Jewish survival, how to adapt without adapting, how to change without changing at all. I once did a speech, and my topic was how the Lubavitcher Rebbe changed all of Judaism, so Judaism shouldn't change at all. That's a Rebbe. And that's really the neshama of this pasuk called Eirech Rakras Yiraglei, Leman Eshbeh Zoracha. He preserves the words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu by being careful that even, the famous Kametz Alafah that the Rebbe talked about, that the Friedrich Rebbe said, that the modern people were saying to teach Abava, what they call today phonetics. And the Rebbe said, no, you have to say Kametz, Aleph, O, because when you say Kametz, you create a malach. And when you say Aleph, you create a malach. When you say O, you create a third malach. And you say Abava, it's not the pshat, you create one malach, you create 0 malach. Because this is how it is in the chinuch of Yisrael Saba, Ruach Yisrael Saba. And David HaMelech is speaking to this idea. Kuf Beis, mi mishpetach alei sarti. And as I told you in my introduction, I believe, and the Mefarshim say this, that David HaMelech is no longer talking about his own Torah and Aveda. He's talking about himself as a dayan, as a shofet, as a judge. He says, I never went away from your dinim. Ki ato heri sani. I was careful that when people came to me with shilas, and of course, there's a shaila and a din Torah, huh? What's the difference between a shaila and a din Torah? A shaila means I have a question, and it's only to me. So my Yetzer Hara wants the psak to be such and such. My Yetzer wants the psak to be such and such, and the Rebbe is going to tell me what the truth is. Then you have a din Torah, which with somebody else. So now there's another human being. It's a whole other Yetzer Hara. Right? The famous word that the Rebbe said, a person could lose 100 ruble because his behemoth treif and not say boo. He could lose 10 cents because he lost a din Torah, and the Rebbe doesn't know how to paskin. That's just one of those funny things. And David HaMelech says, when I paskin dinim, not just shilas, but dinei Torah ben ish li ishtei, ben ish l'reyeyu. Loi sarti, I was paskening halachas without being nice upon him, no bias. And I pasken the halachas the way it's supposed to be pasken. Ki ato hoyrei sani has different taichin. Hoyrei sani means you enlightened me. You showed me the virtue, the correctness of following the Eibishter's mishpatim, based on how I saw it play out in the world on earlier occasions. In the Rishonim it says because of the Ashgacha that I saw in my life. And Ka'at Harisana was the Pashas. You taught me Torah. You taught me that this is the correct way. So Harisana means you enlightened me. Harisana means you showed it to me in my life. I saw that when you live by the Torah, it so to speak resolves itself. And I saw it in the Torah itself. And then it says, Ma nimatu lechiki imrasecha midvash lefi. This pasuk simply celebrates the Torah. It's very similar to pasuk Tzadik Zayin. Mo hafti seidesecha. I love the Torah. So this pasuk is about nima. How sweet is the Torah? And of course, the word nimlatu is translated as sweet, and devash is honey is also sweet. So some of the Rishonim said that this is a double expression. Manimatu lechika. How sweet is the Torah to my palate? In Mesachah, the words of the Torah, midvash, is sweeter than honey, lepi, to my mouth. And of course, the yesod of all this is ma. And ma means bittul. Ma means submission. Ma means acceptance. Ma means not sophisticated. And the ma, the bittul HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is the basis for the nimletzu and the midvash. The sweetness of Torah is Torah because the beginning of it is ma. And of course, you know that there's a mini Yisrael Torah here. It's called Achnasa L'Cheder. That besides for the upsheddiness we do when a child turns 3 years old, the child is brought into Cheder. And there's a shaila when the Achnasa L'Cheder should be done. There's indications from the Rebbe that it can be done even when children are at very young ages. And when you make the child to Cheder, you take honey, you put it on the page, and he licks it. You should know that Torah is zis, Torah is sweet. But the yesod of that sweetness is this ma. And I just want to add that according to Kabbalah, honey is sweet, just like sugar is sweet and other things are sweet. Milk is sweet, for example. But the sweetness of honey, according to Kabbalah, is from Gvura. Some things are sweet, but straight from Chesed. The sweetness is a Chesed sweetness. Honey is sweeter than sweet. It's so sweet it almost hurts, because it comes from Gvura. And of course, Bepashtus, because it's made by bees that are treif. Like Shtimshan Hagiba says in the famous Choyt Chida, Me'az Yetzei Masuk. You have from something bitter, raw, Az means bold, because he found the nest of bees in the carcass and in the cadaver of in the skeleton of a lion. So there's the me'az meitzei mosek of the lion, and there's the me'az meitzei mosek of the bees. The bees are not kosher, and honey is nevertheless kosher, because the way it is in halacha is that the bees are not swallowing it's not becoming part of the bee, like milk from a treif, right? Milk from a treif, animal's treif. So how come honey is kosher? Because the bee doesn't make the honey his own. He simply takes it in terms of pollen, and he puts it out in the nest in honey. So he just simply like a filter. That's why halachically honey is considered kosher. But the idea is that honey has a sweetness which comes from gevura. And in terms of Torah, this is the idea of halacha. Like I said before, Mikol ragle, the credibility of Torah is in the details. Or like I said in an earlier pasuk, in the details, in every single halacha. And the last pasuk is Mipi kudaches bein. I learned your mitzvahs. And of course, mitzvahs go into two categories, what's called Kabbalah and Seichel, that we heard from our fathers. And we understand them on our own. And I contemplated the mitzvahs on both of these levels. The idea that it's Kabbalah, we accept, and we must try to understand. And from contemplating this combination, that first of all, you accept what you have from your teachers, just the way the teachers gave it to you. And then you have a special mitzvah to try and understand it, but you understand it, as the Pasuk said before, misgeinim misbeinan, that there is nekuda be'echol. As much as you understand, you never forget the root of it all. So, mi pikudeches beinan, I contemplated this combination of how one learns and understands Torah and mitzvahs, and al-kain, it led me to hate kol erech sheker, to try the smallest amount of a false path. And like I said before, the meaning of a false path is a tricky thing. You know, people have ideas. People have tons of ideas. Yeah? People tell you ideas, you say, yeah, me'eretese. So I develop ideas. But if a person develops a whole philosophy, whether it's a philosophy of education, or it's a philosophy of civilization, or it's a philosophy of community, it's a philosophy of family, and then you read those books, you shouldn't be reading those books, we read those books, and they're so impressive. You say, boy, this makes so much sense, it's so practical. How come Torah is not written this way, right? How come my mashpiyim don't talk this way? And it's oirach. Because it's a complete path, it's very, very impressive. If the Yesod is sheker, then the oirach is sheker. And David HaMelech expresses a hatred to it. Because mipikudacha is beinan, he contemplates the need to join, to fuse together the two basic poles of how we have our tradition. The first is Kabbalah, what we heard from our parents is sacred. And the second we have to understand. But as much as we must understand, it's never allowed to be an understanding which affects that we forget the Kabbalah. And then you come to see that all the new philosophies, the new ideas, if the foundation is a lie, then the whole build is a lie. I saw an interview with Mrs. Sharfstein from Cincinnati, how she came to the Rebbe with the question in the 60s about the Montessori method of teaching, which today is very modern. I mean, today in Lubavitch you have all kinds of new agers. And I'm not saying they're wrong, by the way. I'm really, when it comes to chinuch, I very much understand the need to make it work. But I also understand the need to keep it sacred. And too many people are so frustrated with the fact that it's not working that they forget. They have the hisbonus and they forget the miskenim, you understand? They remember the seichel, they forget the Kabbalah. And here you have to have this combination. Anyway, she came to the Rebbe and she asked the Rebbe about creating a Montessori school. And the Rebbe said, you have to be careful about the philosophy. Philosophy means the source of where Montessori came from. So she says, I didn't name my school a Montessori school. However she worded it, we're taking ideas from the Montessori method. Because what the Rebbe knew about it, the Rebbe had read about it, and the Rebbe was a man who didn't only have Ruach HaKodesh. The Rebbe wanted information. The Rebbe collected, the Rebbe used to read everything. He wanted to know everything. And he never forgot anything. And it was always available at the tip of his tongue, partially because of his great mind. And he knew what Montessori was, and he said, you have to be careful from the philosophy. Even if the techniques seem to work, you have to know where it comes from. That's called Eirech Sheker. Because Eirech Sheker brings to Eirech Ra. Right? Pasuk Kuf Dalet says Oirach Sheker. Pasuk Kuf has Oirach Ra. If the root is Sheker, the end is also Ra. And you have to be very weary of that. You have to be very weary that when you adopt other ideas, you have to know where those ideas come from. And if there is a need to take a new idea from a new philosophy to help us raise our children, we have to be very, very weary of the sheker behind the Eirach and the Ra that the Eirach leads to. It's a big, big sakana. And David HaMelech says, Mi pikudach hezbanyan. I figured this out by doing hezbanyanis and how mitzvahs are lived. That it's a combination of Kabbalah and Seichel. I'm frightening myself with what I'm saying. But we'll stop. And mitzvah tomorrow we'll do Ois